Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, April 15th, 2010. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. With this week, Gary Glass joins us to bring us up to date on the status of home brewing legislation across the country. There's good news and bad news, unfortunately. Gary will have the details. If you're new to home brewing and would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm Basic Brewing, all one word. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/basicbrewing.james, and you can find our show at facebook.com/basicbrewing. And thanks to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. Whenever you think of Amazon, think of us and click on our associate link first. It won't cost you any extra, and you'll be helping us to bring you this show, and we appreciate your support greatly. And you can also use the associate links for Brew Your Own magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site, too. Let's take a quick look into the mailbag before we get on to talking with Gary. Chris says, I'm writing from Ajax, Ontario, as a member of the Canadian Amateur Brewers Association, or CABA. I wanted to let you and your listeners know that CABA will be hosting its annual Great Canadian Homebrew Conference in Toronto, Ontario, at the Rhino Bar and Grill on June 12th. The event is always a good time, and this year CABA has arranged to have Ray Daniels, author of Designing Great Beers, to be the keynote speaker. That ought to be good. The overall theme of the GCHC is Lagers, more than meets the lawnmower. There will be plenty of opportunities for attendees to learn about lager styles and brewing lagers at home. Chris says, if you think this would be of interest to some of your listeners, I'd appreciate it if you could spread the word. So there you go. More information can be found on the CABA website at homebrewers.ca. That's homebrewers.ca. Tickets will be available soon, he says. Sounds like a good time. A lot of good information up there. Listeners north of the border, check it out. Mark your calendars. Keith from Denver writes after hearing last week's show. Keith says, I just listened to your breakfast beer episode and really enjoyed it. Thanks, Keith. But I have to express my surprise that neither you or Chris knew that Bacos aren't bacon. In fact, last I checked, they're actually vegetarian, made primarily of soy, artificial flavor, and packed with preservatives. I don't know that this would really ruin a beer. It might just be fine, but it isn't bacon. You're right, Keith. Bacos, according to the label, are defatted soy flour, partially hydrogenated soybean oil, water, salt, sugar, artificial and natural flavor, red 40, and other color added, soy sauce, which is water, wheat, soybeans, and salt, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, which is corn, soy, and wheat. Well, there's some traditional, there's wheat in there, so that's a traditional brewing ingredient, right? Yum! Defatted soy flour. Oh, well. You can find real bacon bits out there, though, if you look. I think Hormel has some. I just did a quick search on Amazon and found some on there. Well, speaking of adding bacon to beer, and what Chris Colby not so delicately called dry porking last week, we apparently caused a bit of a commotion internationally with last week's show. Matt from York in the UK writes, I've just been listening to your recent show on breakfast beers whilst driving to work. I must say one of the last things I expected to hear this morning was the phrase dry porking. Me too. Matt says that coupled with your infectious laughing made me lose concentration. I almost drove into the back of someone. And this isn't the first occasion. A while ago I stopped a podcast just short of the end. I forget which one. But then the following day, when I turned on my iPod in the car, I was greeted by your voice in just 2 words. Butt paste. Well, again, much hilarity ensued. See, that's what you get. You don't listen to the end of the show with the Amazon thing where I list a couple, featured Amazon products. You never know what you might hear. Butt paste was one of the items that week. And this from Soren in Denmark. He says, I have to say that dry porking thing on the last show made me look very stupid on the train to work. Just part of the public service we provide here at Basic Brewing Radio. Okay, on to more serious things. Lots of activity this year in the area of homebrew legislation. It's been a while since we've had an update with the goings-on across the country, so let's check in with American Homebrewers Association Director Gary Glass. Well, Gary Glass, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thanks, James. Good to be on again.
Well, we've got some good news and we've got some bad news, right?
Yeah, there is good news and bad news on the homebrewing front for sure. Where would you like to start?
Well, let's start with the bad news and get it out of the way. How about that?
Okay. All right. Well, the bills that we had to legalize homebrewing in Mississippi are both dead at this point. We've been working with Razor Pints and formed kind of a coalition of homebrew club representatives to work with Razor Pints. Then that group is mainly focused on increasing the allowable alcohol by weight in beer sold in Mississippi. But they also champion the homebrew bills, and we were very fortunate that we got sponsors for homebrew bills in both the House and Senate in Mississippi. However, the chair of the Senate Finance Committee, which all of these bills would have had to go through, basically told the bill sponsors that there was no way that any alcohol bills were going to get through the Senate Finance Committee this year.
Wow.
So without even having a hearing for any of the four bills dealing with alcohol that Razor Pints was promoting, the bills were all dead. So that's unfortunate, but I would say that the fact that we had sponsors lined up, I think puts us in a good shape for 2011. And at this point, we're really going to be focusing on encouraging homebrewers in Mississippi to educate their representatives and senators about homebrewing, and so that we don't face this kind of brick wall to begin this session with. So I think we can still make progress in 2011, but unfortunately didn't get very far in 2010.
So what was the justification for the block?
It probably has more to do with elections than anything else. But I didn't hear any specific justification. But in states like Mississippi, alcohol is a touchy subject for a lot of the electorate. So you run into these kinds of scenarios.
So we immoral homebrewers and good beer lovers get knocked down by a guardian of the public.
Right. Yeah. Something like that. And a part of what I try and emphasize with what we have to do as homebrewers, we obviously we don't have a huge amount. We don't have any money to spend on these kinds of campaigns. So what we do have is a lot of people who can make phone calls to representatives, but without having any paid lobbyists. It puts us in a situation where you have to learn the rules of the game, and you have to wage a positive campaign. So even if it seems like a good idea to go after the chair of the Senate Finance Committee, it's really not a good idea to publicly besmirch a legislator, because that could really come back to bite you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need people to get behind the bill, and so waging a positive campaign is the way to go for at least from my perspective and my experience. And unless you've got a lot of money in lobbyists, then those negative campaigns don't tend to work very well.
Right. and so there's not much better news from Alabama, right?
Well, I would say actually Alabama. I think we were, at the beginning of the session, we had a bill sponsored by Senator Larry Dixon, SB 153. We were kind of pretty much told that the bill wasn't going to get through the Senate, let alone get through the House. The fact that the bill actually did pass the Senate was a huge milestone. It did get bogged down in it was assigned to the House Tourism and Travel Committee, and actually did have a hearing where several homebrewers showed up. And then something happened behind the scenes where it became apparent that the bill was never going to get to an official vote in the Tourism and Travel Committee. So, while we had a major victory in actually getting the bill passed by the Senate, for whatever reasons that occurred behind the scenes, the bill did not get to a vote in the House. Which is obviously a big disappointment. There's a great group of homebrewers in Alabama that have been working really hard to get this passed for the last 3 years, and really more motivated this year than ever, especially with getting past the Senate. So it was a pretty harsh blow to have it just ended the way it did. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of positive sense that we have a very real chance of getting this bill passed next year. The level of knowledge of what homebrewers are about is much greater in the Alabama legislature than it was last year, and so I don't think there's really that much opposition to the bill. It's just you never know what some of the motivations are behind things that happen behind the scenes, and with a small bill like this that involves homebrewing, it's hard to say what could have happened. But
this is probably not the kind of issue that politicians who are worried about their public image in certain demographics would be encouraged to stick their neck out for,
Right, yeah, and certainly in some districts it would be very difficult, and so the level of support that we actually saw for it, like I said, passing the Senate was really impressive, especially in an election year. Like I said, we were basically told up front, not a chance this is going to get passed, and passing the Senate was a huge milestone in an election year. So 2011 is not an election year in Alabama, so it's a lot easier to get these kinds of things through.
Well, we learned in Utah the value of running at it more than once. So,
right, yeah, and in Utah it was a somewhat similar situation. The first year we went, where the bill passed the House, could have gone to a Senate vote, but they, at the end of the session, they just decided not to pass any House bills because they were upset with the House for some unrelated reason. So those are the kinds of things that you come up against, and it's tremendously frustrating. But the real key is to keep plugging away and educating legislators about who homebrewers really are, getting past that whole image of backwoods moonshiners, and getting a better sense of who we are as homebrewers.
So sticking with the states south of us, us meaning me, we didn't talk.
Well, that'd be me too.
That's true. We didn't talk about activities in Louisiana last time we got together, I don't think. What's going on down there?
This is a fairly recent development in Louisiana. Their legislative session starts later than most other states. They didn't start until March 29th. But Louisiana has a bill, HB 503, that's been introduced by Representatives Danahay and Connick, that would statutorily legalize homebrewing in Louisiana. So currently in Louisiana, there is no laws regarding homebrewing one way or another. either stating that it's legal or stating that it's not legal. The way homebrew laws work in the states where it's legal is that those laws provide an exception to the requirement for having a license and being taxed to produce alcohol. Louisiana is a little unique in that their definitions for what a manufacturer is does specifically say it's for business purposes, i.e., like selling beer. That's how they're defined. So a homebrewer doesn't meet the definition of a manufacturer in Louisiana, but the beer that they're producing does meet the definitions for malt beverages in Louisiana. So it's really kind of a questionable ground that homebrewers stand on there. So I am of the opinion that it's better to have some kind of law in the books that specifically says that you can do this and that you can't be prosecuted for it, because you never know who could come out into in Louisiana the Alcohol Beverage Control is the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission, and you never know when you can get somebody who's going to decide that they're going to go after these homebrewers in their state. The initial bill, as it was drafted, was fairly restrictive. It only allowed for homebrewers to remove 2 gallons at a time to transport to anything. And then beyond that, if you for local events, you could transport 5 gallons, but the event would have to have a special permit. And then for national events, you could transport up to 20 gallons, and likewise have to get a permit for that kind of an event. Which the whole differentiation between 2, 5, and 20 gallons is unusual. I don't think I've seen anything like that in any other state bills dealing with homebrewing. So, justifiably, a lot of the homebrewers were not too pleased with the way this bill was initially drafted. Mm-hmm. The homebrewers I've been working with are Mike Neely of the Malt Munching Mash Monsters Club and Tom Dagrapont, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, from Baton Rouge and the Red Stick Brewers. They have been working directly with Representatives Danahay and Connick, as well as representatives from the Beer Industry League of Louisiana, which is represents the beer wholesalers in the state of Louisiana, on trying to get this bill amended. And every indication I've got from the bill sponsors is that they're very much interested in producing a bill that's going to be satisfactory to all parties, and aren't interested in moving forward with the homebrew bill until the homebrewers feel that it's a good thing for their state. So at this point, the bill is in the process of being amended, is what I understand. So hopefully we'll come out with something that's much more palatable, and that we can support, and get Louisiana to the point where homebrewers don't have to worry about transporting beer and serving beer at a homebrew club meeting.
Yeah, it would suck to go from just being ignored by the law to being penalized by the law.
It certainly would, and it's hard to say that it may or may not have any effect, because when you're dealing with the alcohol commissions, their primary reason for existence is the collection of taxes. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be more interested in people who are not paying their taxes, or who are trying to sell contraband alcohol, that kind of thing.
So not too long ago, you guys kind of took Kentucky off the list of states where homebrewing was not legal just because there wasn't a law saying it was illegal. Is this a similar situation?
Well, I don't think it is, because in my conversations with with Representative Danahay and through Mike Neely and Tom Dagrapont, it would seem that Louisiana isn't quite the same situation. I still don't quite understand Kentucky, how that works, but but hey,
if it works, it works, right?
If I hear it from directly from their liquor control, then that's the modus operandi for Kentucky. So it does end up being fairly restrictive what you can and can't do with homebrew in Kentucky, though. So you can't be. I don't think it can be served outside of the home anywhere that doesn't have no alcohol can be served anywhere outside in any business that doesn't have a liquor license. And then there is some kinds of restrictions on what you can do if you do have a liquor license. So it is pretty restrictive what you can and can't do with homebrew in the state of Kentucky. But
the news is better in Oklahoma.
The news is good in Oklahoma. The first year that we've had a homebrew bill there. I've been working with Gary Shellman, who's been extremely active in promoting this bill. Bill is HB 2348. The bill has passed the House and has now passed the Senate Business and Labor Committee, which means it's now scheduled to go before the Senate, and that Senate vote could happen at any time. We were thinking it could have even happened on Friday last week, but at any time now that Oklahoma bill could go before the Senate. We did send out an action to all the AHA members in Oklahoma, asking them to contact their senators to support the bill. And I'm very hopeful that it will get passed. The bill did get amended in Senate committee, so basically to clean up some language to make it more consistent with the existing alcohol laws. Those were laws or changes that were made to satisfy the Oklahoma Alcohol Beverage Law Enforcement Commission. So totally supported by the House sponsor of the bill, Representative Colby. Colby Schwartz. If it does pass the Senate without being further amended, hopefully it won't be further amended, then it's got the support of the House sponsor, so they will just go back to the House for a vote. Shouldn't be too controversial, since the sponsor supports the changes. Should be a fairly quick vote in the House, and then it would go to the governor to sign. So the big hurdle for us now is just getting past the Senate.
Now, I read at least one draft of this law at some point, and it required homebrewers to have a license to brew, right?
Right. There's a permit that is required, and that's something that's already on the books in Oklahoma. It is legal to produce wine and cider at home for personal use, but in order to do so, you must get an annual permit from the Alcohol Beverage Law Enforcement, and that's a free permit.
You'd be interested.
As far as I know, there's only one other state that does require permits, and that's New Jersey. And that's actually in New Jersey, you actually have to pay for a permit.
Be interesting to know how many permits are actually issued in Oklahoma.
I was thinking the same thing.
So I know, like Dave and Desiree Knott, of High Gravity, they'll probably get a license or a permit and proudly display it in their shop. But if I were required to get one. Well, of course I would, because I'm highly visible. But
right.
If I were Joe, average homebrewer, would I bother to go down and get a permit? I don't know. But anyway, it's progressing. It's passing. We're still it's still going along. And if people want up to date, immediate results or news, they can follow you on Twitter, right? You're AHA director.
Yeah, AHA Director is my Twitter account.
Your handle. Well, good. Well, congratulations to everybody in Oklahoma. And there's stuff going on in Michigan, too.
Yes. In Michigan, there was a bill, House Bill 5613, sponsored by Representative Doug Geis, who is himself a homebrewer. And this bill is essentially intended to allow for homebrew to be served at licensed breweries, so like at a brew pub. They could host a club meeting or homebrew competition, that kind of thing. Current law, as with many states actually, does not allow for licensed breweries to serve beer that hasn't been taxed, essentially. So unfortunately, this bill has kind of gotten bogged down with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission has some concerns, and concerns that aren't illegitimate about what the ramifications of this bill could be, since current, they've had 80 years of alcohol laws that had nothing to do with homebrewing, that could be undone by this bill. Currently, no outside alcohol is allowed to be brought into licensed breweries, and it is not legal for licensed establishments to serve free beer. And if you make this exception for homebrewers, does that create a loophole for other types of alcohol to be brought in? So I think that's where the concerns are, and there's no clear way to avoid creating those loopholes. It's really hard to make an exception for a group of hobbyists. So that unfortunately, I'm not sure that it's going to go anywhere this year. There's a potential that it could be called up for a vote, but without the support of the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, its chances of success are pretty small.
And you were telling me before we started recording that this is similar to a situation that you guys are dealing with up in Washington State?
Yeah, in Washington State, the American Homebrewers Association, we have a pub discount program for our members, which allows members to get discounts at pubs all across the country. In Washington State, we were told by the Washington Liquor Control Commission that we could not promote this discount. That we could not promote discounts as since the American Homebrewers Association is part of the Brewers Association. Brewers Association has members that are breweries in the state of Washington. Therefore, the Brewers Association is considered to be a representative of those breweries, and so somehow through this chain, we are not allowed to promote the businesses that give discounts to members of the American Homebrewers Association. So yeah, that's a very unfortunate hurdle, because there's really nothing I can do to promote those businesses.
Not even if a Seattle, Washington resident came up to you and said, "Hey, Gary, which pubs are part of the program?"
Right, I could not say.
Wow.
Somebody else could say, but I could not.
Could you drop an information card on the ground and walk away?
Well, we're looking at other possibilities for what we could do, but so far we've not been able to get around this. But in looking at it's a situation similar like what we're saying with Michigan. Undoing this particular law could have some potentially seriously negative ramifications for the breweries in the state of Washington. So while it would be great to be able to promote the pubs that participate in the pub discount program, we wouldn't want to do something that could seriously harm those businesses by making this change that we intend just for ourselves. unfortunately that applies to other businesses that might not have such great intents for the small breweries of Washington.
So when you took this job, did you know that you were going to be mired so much in politics?
I had no idea, but at the time that I took the job, I was actually finishing up my master's degree in American diplomacy. I had no idea that I would still be here 10 years later. But here I am, and I can't say, I got to say that I put that diplomacy degree to work quite frequently these days.
So rather than that ambassadorship that you've been looking for, wow. You never know when you ask a question, as an interviewer, you never know what answer you're going to get. Now we have at least one more piece of legislation that we can talk about, and this is a national one, HB 4278.
Right. This is a bill that's right now it's a top priority of the Brewers Association. It's essentially what we see as a jobs bill for small breweries. The bill would lower excise taxes for small breweries. So currently, those breweries that are producing less than 60,000 barrels, they're paying $7 per barrel on that beer. This bill would reduce that tax level to $3.50 a barrel. And what that ends up doing is it frees up a lot of resources for these breweries that they can then invest in producing more beer, which requires more brewers, more time, more equipment. So it has some substantial opportunities for producing jobs by reducing taxes on small breweries. There was actually a Harvard economist that did some research on the job potential for this, and I believe it was about 2,700 jobs that this bill would create within the first 18 months of it going into effect.
Wow.
So there's a lot of information on the bill on the brewersassociation.org site, which is the AHA's website is homebrewersassociation.org. The division that represents professional brewers working for small breweries is the Brewers Association, and their website is brewersassociation.org. So if you go to the government affairs section there, you can learn more about what's going on with HB 4278.
So there are certain economies of scale. Once you get past, from the ground up, the burden to get into the brewing business and to get those first 60,000 barrels out is pretty heavy. And
right,
any help that those smaller brewers can get to get off the ground and to get going and would be substantial, I would think.
Yeah, sure. Getting access to market as a small brewery is a real challenge, and so having that tax reduction allows them to kind of refocus that money that they would be putting into taxes into their businesses and producing more beer, getting into more accounts, which is great for those of us who like the beers that they're drinking. It means that they can distribute more widely, and we'll have a greater selection to choose from,
and generate more tax dollars.
Right, exactly. It definitely feeds upon itself. So as you're employing more people, you're paying payroll taxes for those people. It definitely helps actually boost will have that long-term effect of ending up paying more taxes from small brewers and making it easier to establish a small brewery.
And there's another component to the law, you said.
It increases the small brewer differential. Currently, the way the tax scenario is set up is for breweries producing 2 million barrels or less, they pay $7 per barrel on the first 60,000 barrels, and then after 60,000 barrels, they're paying $18 per barrel, which is the same tax level that the large breweries that are producing more than 2 million barrels per year, they're paying $18 on all of the beer they produce. The HB 4278 increases that threshold for small brewery from 2 million barrels to 6 million barrels, and then it decreases the tax on the first 60,000 barrels from $7 to $3.50, and then after that first 60,000 barrels from $18 to $16 per barrel.
So if this passes, will the Brewers Association change its definition of what a small brewer is from 2 million to 6 million?
That is up to the Brewers Association Board of Directors.
No, that's not you.
Not me.
Nice job, Gary. You dodge the questions when you have a legitimate reason to. Well, it's interesting. I mean, Sam Adams is sneaking up on I guess the 2 million mark, but I'm assuming that at the rate of growth that craft brewers are experiencing, or at least some are experiencing, there could be some others in that company before too long.
I would certainly hope so. I think that's a great thing for American breweries to see these small breweries succeed that way.
Something I definitely want to encourage. So.
Yeah, and I guess just to give a comparison, because 2 million barrels sounds like a whole lot. Anheuser-Busch InBev produces 107 million barrels per year, and that's just their United States production. They're actually producing over 300 million barrels worldwide.
Wow.
So yeah, 2 million barrels is kind of a drop in the bucket when you're looking at the overall picture. That's less than 1% of the entire beer market in the United States.
So just because you see Sam Adams commercials on TV doesn't mean that they're a big player or as big a player as Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah, relatively speaking, no. I mean, just the fact that they've gotten as far as they have is really impressive. And of course, Sam Adams has long been supporters of homebrewers. So,
yeah, every year at GABF with the long shot competition, and they are always talking about homebrewer roots and encouraging people to get into brewing, so including their employees. So I hope that's reciprocated as well. So is there anything else on the docket, so to speak, on the agenda? Anything else you want to cover?
Well, I think those are the main points that I wanted to cover. Of course, there's always things that come up, and statewide things that affect small brewers. We do send out action alerts on behalf of state brewers guilds for members of the American Homebrewers Association, and kind of keep AHA members in the loop in terms of what's going on and what they can do to support not only home brewing but also the small brewers in their state.
Well, excellent. Well, we look forward to hearing good news from the things that are still alive out there.
I'm sure hoping to have a very positive tweet coming out here soon.
I don't know why I find that phrase funny, but
it makes me laugh every time.
All right, Gary. Well, I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you very much, James.
Well, thanks again to Gary. Good luck to those who are still fighting the good fight. And for those who have had setbacks, don't give up. there's always next year. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. We've still got a handful of 2010 Brewers logbooks in stock. We've also got our Reinheitsgebot is a 4-letter word shirt in our shop as well. You can check out our homebrewing DVDs, Introduction to Extract Homebrewing, Stepping into All-Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. We've got combo deals to save you a few bucks if you want to buy more than one DVD at a time. And you can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com. And if there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order them online in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We appreciate the support. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the links are 1001 Beers You Must Taste Before You Die. Is that a cause and effect kind of a thing? I don't know. And New York Giants Mini Gnome. You never know what you'll find on Amazon.com. Thanks again, and remember, everybody, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We appreciate your support. And if the logo doesn't show up, your browser has it blocked, so check your security settings there. And don't forget our links to the American Homebrewers Association and Brew Your Own magazine as well. That's all until next week. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer, production help for Basic Brewing Radio, and our website is provided by Kelly Dodson down in Austin, Texas. I'm going to see him this weekend. Not in Austin, but, well, anyway. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.